Did you get fired from your job for making a viral video about Charlie Kirk? Our guest today knows a thing or two about this experience, and she's been generous enough to talk to us about it, her journey to political content creation, and more. I'm Mallory Hagan.
And I'm Maggie Gelson Burnett. This is Pretty Furious. Pew, pew, pew. Hey, Mal. How's it going?
You know.
Another day, another dollar.
Another day, another dollar. Unless you're one of the content creators who has lost their job.
Yay! Pew, 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 First Amendment rights.
Yeah, not funny though. Lots of folks are feeling the effects. We're going to talk about it today, but before we do, we got to have folks following us, especially if you're here for the first time because you heard our episode with Suzanne. We're glad you're here. Where can people find us?
You can find us at Pretty Furious Pod basically everywhere. We are on Instagram. We're on TikTok. We're on Facebook. We're on Blue Sky. We're on Substack. That's our hosting platform. Did I miss any, Mallory?
I mean, just YouTube, and then you can find us at prettyfuriouspod.com.
Yeah, YouTube as well. And very exciting, we just launched our first line of merch. So we have that on our podcast website. So that's at prettyfuriouspod.com. And then you can go over to the merch section of our website and you will find Mallory's beautiful hat over there. We've got sweatshirts, we've got t-shirts, we've got mugs, we've got all of the fun stuff. So be sure to check it out.
You know, my friend Tala ordered, let us know if you run into this problem.
Oh my God, this is hilarious.
She ordered a hat from our shop and it's printful. So these are print on demand. They come to you when they're printed and ready. And so we don't keep, like a warehouse or anything. And Tala sends me a picture of her in a hat. And she was like, this is the hat that showed up. And it's a Harvard University Black Alumni Club hat. So it obviously got, put the wrong sticker on it or something and got shipped to her. So hopefully you end up with Pretty Furious merch. But if you don't,
please let us know if you don't.
I thought that was so funny. I was like, maybe don't wear that around.
Yeah, exactly. I'd be curious what other clubs maybe people get sent on our merch to them. So we'll see.
They've probably got a warehouse full of things. I think that's so funny. All right. Well, we can't be pretty furious without being pretty first. Do you have a product this week?
I sure do.
Oh my God, I just wrote a jingle. Do you have a product this week?
That's good. We should clip that as a soundbite and then just use that as our lead-in for products.
That's not, but
please
do proceed.
Okay, so Jesus. This is the Spike Valentino Lip Balm. This is in the shade 302R. So this is like a lip balm / gloss / like lipstick. So it's got a tint to it. But it's like this gorgeous pink color, and I just really it's like a corally pink color. It looks more like Barbie pink than it is. But I just love them. I feel like the color payoff is great. I feel like it keeps your lips hydrated without being too sticky. Yeah, I'm a big fan of these, and I love the packaging on it. Anything Valentino, I'm a stan for.
I was just gonna say, Valentino is a brand that I feel like is overlooked from people who consider like a luxury brand. Okay, my product this week is yet another thing that I use because I don't like how something else feels, Maggie. I have sensory issues and I don't like pressed white strips. I don't like the white strip feeling in my mouth. I'm gonna gag. Yeah. So I actually use their whitening emulsions, which I don't really use a lot of because #pregnancy. But when I'm not pregnant, this is one of my favorite products for keeping my teeth nice and white. And I just like that it has like a little brush on the end. So you just brush it on, let it sit, don't have any coffee 30 minutes after.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing.
Beautiful smile, no weird
gunk
in your mouth from a Crest white.
I agree with that. I hate Crest white, the white strips. They're just like, ugh. Yeah, I don't like the feel of them. And that's from the brand.
Like dry your teeth off to put them on.
It's disgusting. And that's from the brand Crest. Like that's
Yeah,
a
it's
Crest product?
just
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I'm gonna need to check that out. Wow.
whitening emulsions.
Speaking of white, a white guy is making me pretty furious this
Well, what's
week.
new?
This
Is he
article
white or
is
is he orange? No.
He's white. He's white, actually. Yeah, shockingly. Yeah, this guy is just white. So this is from Rolling Stone, and this is an article that says Schumer refuses to say why he hasn't endorsed Mamdani. And this is talking about Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and how he hasn't placed an endorsement yet for the New York City mayoral race. And basically he's dancing around a lot of questions from reporters talking about, like, he's had a couple of meetings with Zoran so far, but he basically is like, I'm not going to endorse him yet. I need to know more. Honestly, I just kind of think this is another way that the Democrats are sort of being chicken shit about having a Democratic socialist become mayor of the largest city in the continental US, which clearly, I mean, Cuomo is out of the picture. So I don't really know what to say at this point to these old white Democrats. I'm like, buckle the fuck up and get in or get left behind. We need to embrace these progressive people who are younger, first of all. Second of all, more progressive in terms of the policies that they want, especially in places like New York City. The impact and influence that would have on having a Democratic socialist as the mayor of New York would be profound. We need that really bad right now. So, yeah, it's just another instance where I'm like, because this candidate doesn't fit into the exact box that the Democrats want, they're kind of, playing footsie and not endorsing anybody just yet. And that race is coming up soon. So, like, it would be really nice if he could also just endorse him and move the fuck on. But I digress. So,
Well, I mean, this is also expecting a lot from someone who has done exactly nothing to fight back against this
a
regime.
whole zero.
I mean, strongly worded letters and ridiculously filmed social media videos in his office. And, I toggle between gratitude for people like Chuck Schumer who have spent basically their life in public service, but then I'm also like, but you spent your life in public service, so you have just as much of a reason to fight against this and for the country as anyone. You've dedicated your life to this. Saying like, well, here's a letter is just
right.
But the point I'm making is like, I don't expect much more from
Yeah,
so many of
100%.
these people. And I think that race is so interesting. New York is such an bizarre place when it comes
really
to
is.
the wealth inequality that's there. There's sheer power in numbers of people who are working class, obviously, but then
Yeah.
there's so much power in the moneyed class in New York. So it will be interesting to see not only if he wins, but how that shapes up in the years to come with the policies that a Democratic Socialist would inevitably enact.
Yeah, I'm very, very anxious to see the outcome of this election. So I'm sure I'll have a lot of thoughts probably right when you're back from maternity leave. So that'll be exciting for us to talk about. What's your headline?
Well, and we've got some exciting developments about that. We were initially planning to take some time off, or we were going to try and pre-record, and then we were like, well, we talk about headlines, how do we do that? So Maggie's lining up some fun guest hosts, so have no fear if you're enjoying listening to Pretty Furious, or if you are a new listener here. I'm not going too far. I'll be back soon, but hopefully we have some fun names and voices to fill the gap in the coming weeks as well. I have a few more episodes, but still. Okay, so my headline that's making me pretty furious is that Oracle will now manage TikTok's algorithm. And this has just been an ongoing battle of a roller coaster of emotions for our TikTok experiences. I do feel as though the algorithm has already shifted in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of people who spend a lot of time on TikTok feel that way. But a lot of people are feeling distrust for the platform already. And this is only going to make that worse. And so my big thing is we've already discussed ad nauseum online and and hear at points why this is bothersome, just the inability for the free market to take place. Is it the data? Is it our security? Is it our brain rot? Well, what is the real purpose of all of this? But to me, as someone who makes money on TikTok and who utilizes that platform to share a message with a larger audience, I'm just a little furious about the fact that all of that is getting ready to shift. There are so many people who do that at a much larger scale. Will they lose their ability to earn an income there? How will those things transition? And I just think it's like, I don't know, it's unfair. And especially when Meta is the cesspool of ridiculousness that it is. It was just like, that was just like our place, you know? Is it still going to be our place?
I know. It's really frustrating. I love TikTok, and it was like the one spot I could always count on getting new information from and like
And
learning
faster.
something new. Yeah, and way faster. And, you know, I learned so much about Palestine and Gaza and, you know, just global events that were happening through TikTok.
Not to mention that TikTok is like the second largest search engine at this point. So
Yeah, yeah.
there's all of that.
Yeah, so you can
Where is
search
that?
everything. Yeah, it's sad. It sucks. I really hope that we don't notice a huge shift, but to your point, I've already started to see little things in my algorithm that I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. So yeah, we'll see. It'll be a waiting game, I think.
You know who I hope people are seeing on their algorithm is our guest today. We've got Jess Britvich here. You want to bring her in?
Yeah. So Jess is a content creator who focuses on the intersection of internet culture, trends, and politics. She creates short form content on Instagram and TikTok, and she will actually be launching a Substack this month where she will dive into longer form video content and writing. Let's welcome her to the show. Jess, welcome to Pretty Furious. We are so excited to have you here.
Oh my God, I'm so excited.
You brought a headline that has made you pretty furious. Can you share it with us?
Honestly, like just stick your hand into a hat and pull out a headline and it's probably making
Fully.
furious. But the one I chose today is about the Trump administration set to tie Tylenol to autism risk, officials say.
Slay.
Which is, oh, God, it's just exhausting. And I know that's the point. I know they try to overwhelm us with just this insane headlines and information to make us feel apathetic. But like, oh my gosh, how just absolutely absurd. Once again, it's based on faulty data, which is basically what the whole MAHA movement is based on, is faulty, misrepresented data.
It's also so interesting, and some folks have started to point this out. It's interesting that they've chosen Tylenol, the brand.
Yes.
It does make me
Yeah.
wonder, and there hasn't been a lot of reporting on why are they choosing a brand, because it's not they're not going after the drug, they're going after
it's medicine.
And to me, that is really interesting. And this past week, I had a lot of conversations about this because going into giving birth, basically, in a few weeks, you know, there's so much when you're pregnant that you're already anxious about.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you eat, you know, I have high blood pressure. I have gestational diabetes. I mean, it's just, there's so much. And we were talking about this push for women to have more babies. And yet everything that this administration does pushes people further in the opposite direction. It's like instilling this level of fear and anxiety in women. I mean, who wants to get pregnant right now?
Yeah, totally.
They're doing it in a way where it's forced birth. You know, they're trying to make birth control. I mean, the next thing on the docket is going to be birth control. They've already planted that seed by trying to say that IUDs and Plan B and other birth control pills are abortifacients. Like they're starting that narrative already. But I talk a lot about like these alt-right pipelines, and I think women who are new mothers or who are pregnant are very susceptible because it's a really vulnerable time. And you go to the internet searching for information because we know our healthcare system sucks. And, you know, you go to the OBGYN and bless them, but like, they're not really, this is the 50th patient they've seen today. So you go to the internet and there is so much of these grifters just preying on individuals' fears in one of the most vulnerable times of their life. And I really think that's an entry point to a lot of radicalization. And I think it really is what led a lot of women, especially white women, down these alt-right pipelines.
Piggybacking off of that a little bit, one thing I noticed early on in this pregnancy was the algorithm feeding me very specific types of content, very anti-science content. And
Yeah.
a specific example of this is early on in my pregnancy, I was getting a lot of information being pushed at me about co-sleeping and why it's okay and why you shouldn't be concerned to sleep with your baby and why it's natural to sleep with your baby. And I'm talking verbatim. I sent Maggie screenshots, verbatim paragraphs from reels of influencers and women who are pushing this narrative that it's okay to put your baby in your bed with you. And you know what? To each their own, you do you, whatever makes you happy. But what I was noticing was just how much of it I was getting. I mean, it was video after video after video. And so take that one example, multiply it by Tylenol's bad for you and your baby, and it's going to give you autism. Or whatever else the subject matter is. And it's really easy to see how women who are not attuned to the fact that they're being fed the same thing over and over again could very well fall down any rabbit hole, much less one the health of their body and their baby while they're pregnant.
One thing I saw that when all of this stuff came out today about the Tylenol thing was I saw somebody on Threads who said, make no mistake, after this, they will come for epidurals. And I thought that was really fascinating because I thought to myself, well, that's the entire like trad wife experience, right? Is to like give birth in a bathtub in your home, to have these natural births. There will undoubtedly be some kind of falsified data that comes out showing how epidurals are bad for the baby or like whatever. So I thought to myself, that is like the next iteration of this is not only is it forced birth, but it's forced, unmedicated birth. Yeah. And so
my eyeballs just got so big when you said,
and I was like, I literally was like, I better crank out a baby immediately.
So that's the first thing we're doing when we get there. I'm like, tap, tap.
Oh yeah, fully.
Hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that made me think too about how like that kind of information would feed into this sort of trad wife pipeline as well. And so something I have thought about with your content a lot is that you talk a lot about these different ways, specifically with anti-intellectualism, which I just love your content on that specifically, but just, I mean, really all of your content. And I'm curious how you think that people who maybe aren't as immersed in politics or their feeds aren't near as curated as all three of ours, how you would suggest to somebody how they could look at content really critically and be like, that maybe is trying to get me to go somewhere, like the co-sleeping thing. I feel like that seems really totally innocuous. And then it's like you read further into it and you're like, oh, now I'm getting strictly breastfeeding content and like how formula fed is not good for the baby or whatever it is. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
It's so complicated because, and it's only going to get worse with AI, and it has already gotten worse with AI. So learning how to spot misinformation, the misinformation is getting more and more sophisticated, and it's such an important skill to develop, media literacy or however you want to frame it. I think big things to think about is kind of if you see a piece of content that really evokes an emotional reaction from you, whether that's extreme anger, extreme fear, whatever it might be, kind of take that as a cue to maybe just look into it a little bit more. It's so hard because at the same time, so much of the information that I feel I see from day to day is just like so shocking and elicits that emotional reaction. But as I mentioned earlier, sometimes even these things that are somewhat based in truth are kind of highlighted for clicks and for views and pressure us into this feeling of paralysis, like there's nothing that we can do. The reason that some of this alt-right content does so well online is because it's so devoid of nuance because that's what does well in the algorithm. And misinformation spreads because it lacks nuance. It's emotion-based, it's fear-based, and it's born to go viral. So that's what you're going to see, and that's what's you're going to want to click on and consume more of. But I think just being hyper aware of that and really trying to look for peer-reviewed sources, trying to understand how research is conducted, just about different causations and different things like that. And how just because one study says something does not necessarily mean that that is a proven fact. There's a lot of different ways to interpret data, and it's extremely complicated. You're not expected to know it all, but knowing whose voices to trust, I think, are really important. And that's never like a chiropractor with 100,000 followers, like in my
fully. That's so real.
I think one of the things that is really necessary, unfortunately, right now in this moment in history is for more women who look like us
Oh, absolutely.
to be sharing our political thoughts and opinions and views. And so how does your literal physical appearance play into sort of why you choose to put on makeup while you talk about some of these important topics?
Yeah, well, part of it is a little selfish. I just like doing my makeup, and I actually used to do kind of beauty content, not very successfully, but before transitioning more into this space. But I also think it makes the information a little bit more palatable for people. I think sometimes it can hook people who might otherwise not be seeking out political content to engage. And then I've also heard, this is why I have the tattoos, because sometimes I hear that I'm Republican passing, it's the blonde hair, it's,
Republican
nice
passing
titties,
is so good.
So, like,
I totally understand. I
Yeah.
live in Alabama.
but I think there's a privilege that comes in that. Certain people will listen to things that I say that they might not otherwise listen to somebody who doesn't look like me, and it's so wrong. And however, I realize that I have that privilege, and that's why I want to continue to push the envelope and speak up and use my platform to spread these messages. I was just on this creator trip to Farm Aid, which was a fantastic time, and there was creators from across the board there. But there was one creator who's he's a farmer, and he's well, probably a boomer, I would think. And he says how he wears his red hat. It's not a MAGA hat. It's some sports team. I'm not good at sports. Some sports team that has a red hat. But he says how he feels his power is being able to speak to those individuals who are blue collar, who are in the farming community, who are of this certain age. And they see, this white man, the farmer, kind of rough and tumble guy with a red hat on. And it kind of tricks them to be like, oh, this is someone who I know what he's going to say. And then they just totally flips the script on them. So I think that's important to see. I think that people in especially in these communities where people are MAGA and voting red, I think continuing, if we have access to those spaces, not just tapping out, continuing to have those conversations with our positions of privilege is really important.
Yeah.
I think
I'm curious.
So the first time I ran for office, I really used my having been Miss America a lot. And
Yeah.
that was very frowned upon from the consultants of, they were like, you've got to stop with the Miss America thing. And I was like, you don't understand. I'm running for office in Alabama. I'm a blonde haired, blue eyed woman, 29 at the time, 29 years old. I'm running for office. I need them to hear something that makes them go like, oh, because Miss America in Alabama says one thing, right, to an audience, and then you kind of come in and flip the script. So I think everybody being able to sort of find what that in is for them in their community, whether it's being, of a certain age with a red hat, or their beauty, or their proximity to their community relations boards, whatever it might be, just being able to use those positions of influence and use them well in a Trojan horse kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So important.
Yeah. Jess, I'm curious, did you grow up, talking about politics a lot? Like, were your parents really, did they sort of like instill that in you, that you just felt like you really wanted to? So how did you get into that?
I was always very lucky that my parents have always been progressive for the most part, at least Democrat. I've definitely pushed them to be more progressive as we've gotten older, and I'm so proud of them for that. But growing up, we weren't a overly political family. It's not something that was talked about too much. In fact, the most that I heard politics was at Thanksgiving. My one uncle, who was MAGA before MAGA was a thing. He was the crazy conspiracy, like Bill O'Reilly, like, oh my God, like QAnon before QAnon was a thing, I swear.
Probably for our age as well, like Tea Party. That
yes.
when we were coming up in, well, I don't know how old you are, but when I was growing up in high school, the Tea Party was blowing up.
Yeah. And he also hated Obama, was racist, just a real great guy. However, he would go on these rants about these conspiracy theories. And I remember being fascinated by that in high school. And it really wasn't until I got to college that I became very political, where then I started to unravel some of those kind of crazy conspiracy theories that I would hear my uncle say, or just kind of, these different situations I saw growing up. And it really was it was a gender, race, and class, like, media course that really was just like catnip to me. And I was just obsessed with it. And after that, I was like, this is the kind of stuff that I want to do. I love it. So my background in undergrad was journalism and political science. And yeah, just kind of sprouted from there. I also have a background in social work as well. I have my master's in social work. But this is really the type of content that I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to create the type of conversations I've always wanted to have. And I don't know why it took me so long to start putting this kind of content out on the internet, because this has really just always been what I've been talking about in my private life. And building this platform is just like a dream of mine. So it's been really cool.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, what that journey has been like of getting into content creation in the political sphere, because I was talking with somebody the other day, and it might have been Mallory. I don't know if it was you, or I don't know. The days are kind of running together. But I was talking to somebody about how I've always made kind of inherently political content in some capacity. I've always kind of erred a little bit towards political content, but I never really fully came out and was like, this is what my beliefs are, this is what I'm saying, until probably a year and a half ago, a couple of years ago, and then especially last year, after this last election. And so I know that for me, it was really difficult to start making content about politics, because I always felt like, even if I knew more than the average person, I always felt like, well, I don't know enough. So how am I the one who should be putting out this content? Why should I be the one that's doing this? And so did you feel any imposter syndrome when you first started making content, or were you just sort of like, nope, this is what I believe and this is how I believe it, and fuck you if you don't agree with me?
No. I don't know, not imposter syndrome. No, actually.
I love that.
However,
I love that.
I think there's certain things, I definitely have weak spots. I'm continuing to try to learn. I actually get a little self-conscious on podcasts and things, because really more of my medium is the short form content, where I'm able to really sit down and write and think out my thoughts. I want to get better at more fluid public speaking, but it's just the ADD in me. I can't keep a thought straight. So it's that kind of stuff. But I'm so passionate about, I've been talking about this kind of stuff for a really long time. And I have a lot of background in it, because I did work as a social worker for about 10 years or so. So I've seen really the impact of these policies on the ground too, and how they're impacting the most marginalized communities. And I don't think that we need to all be the most educated in every single space of politics in order to have these types of conversations, because at the end of the day, we're all constituents, and these things are impacting all of us. And I think that's the beauty of the online space. It's like that double-edged sword, because anybody could get on and say anything online. So there is that misinformation that is partially why we're at where we're at, but at the same time, it also can be used for such good as well too. So
yeah, totally.
Just got to be a little more strategic about it on the left, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. We were just talking with Suzanne Lambert about that this last week.
I was listening to that pod earlier.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yay. Oh, thanks for listening. But yeah, we were kind of talking about that, about how the left has been so awful at just our media strategy, specifically digital media, has just been just god awful. But how people like you and Suzanne and Mallory and this kind of cohort of specifically female, progressive content creators are really, I think, pushing that message forward and honestly, without being paid fairly, and just kind of doing this free labor, honestly, of pushing this progressive message forward. So it's really inspiring to see from my perspective, because I'm constantly surrounded by women who are doing the heavy lifting of the Democratic Party of being like,
Right.
we have to win the next election.
I
So,
know. If that
yeah,
even is going to be a fair election,
I
which
know,
like,
right? Yeah,
I don't know,
exactly.
but
We're
Exactly.
gonna get into that because I do have a question about keeping the faith, but I want to wait
I
until
know. Not
maybe
get too doom and
into the
gloom up
high
front.
note. The background in social work and journalism really gives you the perspective of understanding how all of these things are intertwined. So much of our policy, so many of the issues that we face as a country have to be tackled from multiple avenues and angles all at once. But if I had to ask you
Yeah.
to choose one avenue to start, where would you place the most emphasis if you were talking to serious politicians, not the very unserious ones that we have
Mm.
now? What area would you say, I think if we start here, we're going to go down a path that helps us fix some of these other things as well?
Overall, I mean, I think it's it's the combination of white supremacy and Christian nationalism that has never been addressed in this country. And I think that a lot of where we're at today is because of a response from the Obama administration, because we have so many freaking racists in this country, because this country was built on racism, that all of this I feel is a response. I feel it's a response to the Black Lives Matter movement. It's really scary. It's really disgusting. And I think, gosh, we can't keep just like appeasing this middle ground or play like these respectability politics, playing this middle ground, trying to like the Democrats are so center, are so right compared to most leftist politics in the world. And it's a losing strategy, and it also like harms people. It's not for the people. We need like a working class coalition. We need to be adamantly against white supremacy, Christian nationalism, like the billionaire class. And I think there's very few politicians who'd be open even to that conversation at this point.
Just the blowback of the conversation around Charlie Kirk, where so many are saying this is not a good human. This man was a racist. And the amount of people who have come out like in warrior suits saying you're taking it out of context. There's no other context. And I think I wasn't expecting you to say that. My mind was going more towards like, if we fix education, then people will be smarter. They'll be able to understand policy a little less. But I think you're right. I think that genuinely speaking, and I've had this conversation with people close to me before, we can't address anything if you're not willing to accept and address that this country has never moved on from slavery. It has taken on different forms. It has transitioned into different things, but there are communities, and specifically the Black community, that are systemically oppressed and have been, and so many things stem from that.
Yes.
And without addressing those things, how can we address anything else? Because we are saddled with hate.
Yes.
Saddled in this country. I think the aftermath of Charlie Kirk has really, I mean, Black Lives Matter movement 2020 definitely showed that, like it reared its head. And this, I was like, oh God.
And I think that just like
people who don't understand why saying Black women don't have the brain processing power doesn't need any other thing to go along next to it. I don't need the context. That is a horrendous thing to say.
And I just don't understand this like revisionist history that he was willing to go on college campuses and have a conversation with anyone. That could not be farther from the truth. And I don't understand. Well, I do understand, but it just absolutely is infuriating to have these conversations with people or to see this rhetoric online that he was just a guy trying to bring the nation closer
just
together.
A friendly debater.
Just a friendly debate. When I forgot people. He was a provocateur. He was a content farmer. He went to this was a media machine. He was funded. He didn't even like grassroots his own platform. This is like an astroturfed, like heavily funded operation that he had. He's not just this little guy going and just trying to find the common ground. He purposely would provoke individuals on college campuses. And this is what ended up getting me in trouble somehow. But like thought-provoking cliches and just false arguments that you can't win against. It was not
because it's emotional
never
manipulation.
Debated. It was never true. It was debate for sport, but not debate for the betterment of the American people. Period.
Absolutely.
And he spread his disgusting ideology through these weak, superficial tactics, and it's just beyond.
And then, ironically, his death became a product of the very thing that he promoted. Like, so it's like all of this is tied together. But I'm so glad we made it here, because that's a great segue. So you made a video about Charlie Kirk, and it was gorgeous and lovely. It was so good. And it was the eulogy of Charlie Kirk. Very, very well done. I have to know, did you write that beforehand and then?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good.
It was not
and that yielded some not great results for you. And so I'm curious if you would share more about that experience. I know it's only been like, what, maybe 10 days or a week, maybe.
A week today.
Happy week anniversary, girl, of being a full-time content creator.
Oh my God, yes.
So I'm curious, like, what that has been like. It's still fresh, but what you're experiencing right now as a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't talked about this too much online, but I was fired from my job for that video. I worked as a recruiter for a financial services agency. I'm not surprised. However, I'm very disappointed just how quickly individuals will bend the knee to fascism, essentially, to protect themselves. I have absolutely zero regrets. I stand by that video tenfold. And it's a really complicated feeling, because I'm excited for this next chapter. I've never felt more confident in my position and my messaging and what I want to do with this platform. But at the same time, I think it's a really scary place that we're in. My video is not, I think, inflammatory. I don't think it was disrespectful.
Nope.
I don't think it was even really about Charlie Kirk. It was really more about where we're at, about the common rhetoric and about the rise of fascism and what that really means for our culture. It really, I mean, of course it was in the context of him, but it's not just about him. So like I said, I really stand behind everything that I said in that video. However, I was kind of part of the doxing campaign or whatever. And some people did end up sending it to my employer and to the home office of my employer. And being a recruiter, I'm in a client-facing role. And I knew in due time that my online presence was probably not going to be compatible with my workplace. And I don't want to come, like I said this, and I like teased it a little bit on my story. I don't want to come after my employer, even though I am very disappointed in their choice. But once again, it's not about the specific employer. It's about bending the knee to fascism at the end of the day. What's allowed to be said and where the Overton window is, and about how continuing to say things that make the ruling class uncomfortable or speaking out against the regime is so frowned upon that some random girl in Pennsylvania can get fired from it. Like, I'm nobody, and my company's no offense to my company, but they're nobody, like, what do you mean?
On the other side of that, just as a point of positivity, as we're recording this, which we're recording this further ahead than we normally record our weekly episodes. So we're recording on Monday, the 22nd. So it'll be a full week before this comes out, just in case the world has literally gone to shit or the rapture did happen.
Yeah, right.
Here's open.
Yeah. But
just before we came on to record, they announced that Jimmy Kimmel is going to be back on the air. And there's a lot to speculate there. We don't know exactly why, et cetera, et cetera. However, we could be safe in guessing that it had something to do with the amount of blowback that they received from everyday Americans who, I'm so sorry, did not fucking mandate this administration. The amount of people in my comments over the last week and a half, I've also been not really doxxed because I work for myself, but whole other situation. The people in my comments who are like, he's your president. This is, get used to it. Then they're like, Trump 2028, blah, blah, blah. They're like, 77 million people voted for him. And I'm like, math is hard, isn't it? Because that's just a fraction of the country, you fucking
Right.
idiot.
Right.
You are not mandated here. So I guess the point that I'm trying to make is like the blowback was there. The blowback was there for Disney and ABC. People came out in droves to cancel their, canceling trips, canceling cruises, canceling their streaming services. And I don't know if that's the only reason that they said, well, but they canceled the Charlie special on Friday night. And then now Jimmy Kimmel is back. So my hope is, yes, some of us are experiencing some unfortunate times relative to our speaking out. However, that speaking out gives other people the courage to do the same.
100%. And it's worth it. And that's why I said to even someone else that I worked with, whatever. I was like, I do not, even knowing this outcome, I would not change a thing. I would repost that video 1,000 times. And speaking back, like, yeah, we kind of make light of like, oh, I'm Republican passing, or like, we're able to infiltrate these systems. But that means putting yourself in situations that are uncomfortable. I have the privilege of being a white woman, of being in a dual income household, which is, really provides some. I couldn't really afford to lose my job, but like, we'll be fine,
Sure.
And that's what I said to my husband whenever Trump got elected. I was like, we're going to have to put ourselves in situations that are really, really uncomfortable. But that's the price of activism. And so stuff like this is going to happen, and it might get worse before it gets better. But like, if you're really in the fight, like, it's worth it. I have no regrets.
It is worth it, and it's necessary.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of thousands of examples of people in history who we wouldn't be where we are if it weren't for them putting themselves in positions that were uncomfortable. And when you think about race relations in America, I actually was watching a video recently where someone said, can you name 5 white activists for the civil rights movement? And everybody was basically like, no. And they were like, that's by design. But they were everywhere because they had to be, because we be a part of this movement. And I think that same thing applies to us now. Like, we're not going to combat authoritarianism and fascism if we're not willing to do things that make us uncomfortable and put ourselves in situations that don't feel super great. I actually had one result I did get was the 1 hour a week that I spent teaching dance, which I loved, but okay. The 1 hour a week I spent teaching dance, folks called the dance studio and were like, yeah. So I stepped away from teaching this past week, and what I thought to myself was, you guys don't understand the can of worms that you just opened, because the dance studio was actually the thing that was keeping me from saying what I really wanted to say.
Right.
It was the only tether I had to a company that was keeping me from saying what I really wanted to say. So congratulations. So congratulations, that little $35 a week I made teaching dance, which I love, don't get me wrong. Now that it's not there, now we're cooking with gas.
Exactly.
Right, exactly. This show's about to get way more lit.
So if you thought you hated me online before, buckle up.
Just
bitches.
wait.
We were talking about that, the two of us, and it's like, the way that people have responded in this scenario has not made us want to shut up. It has made us want to get louder.
Oh,
this is fuel
absolutely.
For me. You think this is fuel for me? Like, oh my God. I think we have power as laborers where these upper class can't function without us, and like, and that's really why there needs to be a working class coalition. And I think it goes, like, for a while, I wasn't sure if boycotts really worked or not, but I think we also haven't seen them, at least in my lifetime, haven't seen them to this scale. And it's really encouraging. We can, as a community, have impact and speak out and not just passively let these things happen. It's just making yourself a little uncomfortable.
Well, I mean, you guys, I don't know what accent that was that just came out. You guys. But at I'm going to use Memorial loosely.
For fuck's sake, that fucking shit show.
After everything that has transpired with Elon Musk and Donald Trump and the public boyfriend breakup, and then Elon has threatened them for the HB1 visa or the H1B visa, whatever it's called. I mean, the discourse between them has been very public and very loud and has caused news cycle interruptions. And yet there they were sitting next to each other, palling around at the memorial. And it makes me think about all of the billionaire class that we continue to see. It's like they're fighting for sport, but at the end of the day, they're all on the same team.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's their ability to make money, their ability to take from those of us who are a part of said working class.
Yeah.
And Suzanne said it, but it's worth repeating. You know, this isn't us versus them. And the continuation of the back and forth between red and blue teams is probably not the most helpful way to get over that. It's just really hard not to call people dumb.
I told this too, and Jess, I would love your input on this as somebody who grew up with like progressive parents. I did as well, and I mean, so did Mallory. But we were talking with Suzanne specifically about this because she was conservative and grew up conservative. And I think people who grow up conservative who then make the transition over to being a Democrat, being a liberal, a progressive, whatever phrasing you want to use, who go from right to left, they often have, I think, a greater tolerance for people on the right. So they have this greater tolerance and frankly, more empathy for people on the right who ask the dumb as fuck questions, who ask, who do the stupid shit and then are like, wait, I didn't mean to do that. Like, I know better now. I'm learning. And I was like, I have a really difficult time with that tolerance. I live in a blue state. I live in an area that is pretty liberal. I think, Mallory, you probably have a better tolerance for this because you live in a red state and because you are surrounded by these people and grew up with these people. And then Mallory ran for office twice in Alabama. And this intolerance has only grown over the last decade, right? So I'm curious how you deal with that. And if you experience like that, I just have a visceral reaction of wanting to punch these people in the throat. And I really need to get the fuck over that, I think, and not be such a bitch, but I love being a bitch. You know what I mean? So
I wax and wane with it because whenever something really just insane happens, like whenever we see people cheering about alligator Alcatraz or whenever Roe v. Wade gets overturned or whenever, whatever it might be, I like have a visceral reaction. Like, I will never forgive someone who voted for Trump. And I feel that emotionally for like a little, and I go back and forth between that. And then I calm down and then I'm like, okay, you have to realize that this, I don't know, this is like me just speaking personally. I struggle with it because at what point is that like enough is enough? At what point is it like no matter how much misinformation you've been fed, no matter how indoctrinated you've become, at what point is it like enough is enough? And these are adults at the end of the day that we're talking about, who are like responsible for decision making and things like that. However, at the same time, I do realize, because I live in Pittsburgh, but I grew up 40 minutes down the road from where Trump got shot in Butler County. So it's a blue dot and a sea of red, and Pennsylvania is a purple state. It churns my stomach every day. But we're a purple state, and outside of Philly and Pittsburgh, it's pretty red. And so I do have a lot of relatives, a lot of coworkers, a lot of neighbors who are either conservative or MAGA. And what I've realized is, no, I don't think a lot of these people are stupid. I think they're stupid when it comes to politics. I think they're smart in whatever avenue of life they may, most frequent. But I think whenever it comes to politics, I think whenever it comes to understanding other people's lived experiences, I think when it comes to media literacy, that there's a huge lack. And I think that's also by design. And it's also why we continue trying to see cuts on the Department of Education or dismantling the Department of Education or these trying to push Christian nationalism into schools. It's by design. And so it's hard to be like, are people just a product of this system that was designed to indoctrinate people? Or like, how much responsibility do we each hold for our belief systems? I don't really know.
Yeah. I struggle with like the very clear and I think real aspect that like this is a cult too, right? Like this is a cult that has indoctrinated these people to a point where they will believe anything that their leader says. So at what point is it worth like reaching across the aisle and being like, hey, let me try to explain this to you in a way that would make sense? You know, those are kind of the things I think about with like creating content is like, at what point is it worth it to make content that might appease, like, you know, or be something that somebody on the right might take interest in, right?
This kind of happened yesterday to a piece of content. So I did a collaboration post with some creators who I met on this creator trip to Farm 8, but that it got a lot of different eyes on my content. We all have different audiences that we reach. So we collabed on this sound that was like, you know, that sound on TikTok is like, I love abortion and birth control and migrants and, you know, whatever that trend is. So we like did a voiceover on that and we all collabed. And there was a lot of comments of I agree with everything you're saying, but to hear you say I love abortion just really turns my stomach. Or like, you know, you shouldn't say I love abortion. Like you should say just a bunch of policing of the language of saying I love abortion. So I made a response video to that where I go more in depth on how I think now more than ever we need to be unapologetic about our support for abortion and saying that we do love abortion. I was like, okay, well, this is a conversation that I think is worth having, especially for individuals who are like, I support what you're saying. I'm pro-choice, but I feel uncomfortable saying I love abortion because I think, you know, a lot of people have grown up in evangelical churches and are trying to deconstruct, or just, you know, I grew up in the Catholic Church and trying to deconstruct from that, you know, these things of morality that have been pounded into us since we were children. I think that it takes a lot to kind of break free from that. So I'm more than happy to have those types of conversations. However, as the conversation kind of continued, then the rhetoric started to turn more, well, at the end of the day, you're just killing babies. You're killing babies. You're killing babies. And I'm like, okay, well, and it's like at that point, I'm like, okay, it's not worth engaging in this conversation anymore because you're just a false actor who's not actually open to actually having a genuine conversation. And so I think you kind of feel that in your life too. I know those in my life who even maybe voted for Trump, but are open to conversations. And some who've even said, I've regretted this decision, or some who don't like what is going on. And I think, once again, as a white person, and I've struggled a lot with this of being like, I need to stand my ground and be like, I don't condone this, so I don't want to associate with you. Or being like, well, it's my responsibility because I'm still safe in this relationship with this person to be the one to kind of facilitate that conversation. So I've kind of like wavered between those two things, but I think you could kind of tell when there's still hope and when all hope is lost.
Yeah, you can kind of suss it out if they still are like have a critically thinking brain cell.
Or it's open
for sure.
To vulnerability.
Or open to the conversation.
I definitely agree with that when it comes to people in person. You can absolutely determine who in your circles and in your life is willing to have a more in-depth and more critical conversation around a topic or might see something differently. I know lots of people who voted for Trump in the first cycle in 2016 and are officially like on the never Trump train.
Right.
Who consider themselves to be conservative or Republican, but they do not like Donald Trump and do not like what he stands for. And so I know that there's hope in that, but there's also this idea that I'm like, we have a decade worth of his commentary, his failed policy, his, you know, there's example after example after example, which is what I made a video about. It's like, we're a decade into this at this point. What else, as you said, do you need? How many more points do you need to know that this is not only a horrendous human being, which that used to be a piece of what made someone vote. Now it's like he's a horrendous human being and he's really bad at this. Like he's very he has removed anyone who should be a stopgap to him at the national level, from generals to Kash Patel being the FBI director to Pam Bondi. I mean, there is a litany of unqualified people who are running our country because he doesn't want pushback. And so
Mhm.
I think it's kind of difficult sometimes to know where those boundaries are with people. But I like how you said
Mhm.
that some of us are still in positions that feel safe for those
Mhm.
people on the other side of the aisle to continue having conversations with. And it can be difficult to bear the weight of having those conversations with them because you just are just like, oh my God, what else do you need?
Infuriating. Right.
It is
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Mhm.
all that to say though, we have to have hope because first
Mhm.
of all, we're trying. The three of us are making content. We are trying to reach people or at least make them think. And
Right.
that's because we do believe at the end of the day that we can move forward, that there is a path. So how do
Yeah.
you hold on to that hope, especially in the midst of weeks like this one where this has cost you your livelihood and you're hearing that you're a baby killer online?
Yeah.
Just another day. Just par for the course, really.
Fully.
I think it's remembering that this is God. This feels really scary, I think, going back to a lot of what this conversation was surrounding. It feels really scary, I think, for us as white women because we have never been in this position before. But for Black individuals, for trans people, for Native people, and for people across the world, this isn't anything new. We've seen fascist regimes take hold before. That doesn't make it any less scary, but I think it's also um, people have been fighting this kind of stuff for centuries, and it's been, well, I think we could argue the fascism has been rising in the United States for like centuries also, but like
Fully.
to,
Yeah.
to really feel the effects of it, it's been, I don't know what, I don't know however many years it's been, 10 years or whatever, and we're going to throw in the towel. It
Yeah.
doesn't work like that, you know? So I
Mhm.
think it's having conversations like this. Yeah, I get hate comments, but I don't know, maybe I'm just, I don't know, maybe I have selective vision or something, but I think that the majority of comments I get are supportive and are of people who are in this fight also. And it's that community at the end of the day. That gives me hope. And like I said, like as a white woman, I do not have it bad compared to other people in America now or in
Right.
history. So now's
Mhm.
not the time to lose hope. It's like just the beginning.
Absolutely. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
We always like to end our episodes with our guests by asking them about their favorite product. So, is
Perfect.
there a product that you cannot live without that you want to share with us?
Yes. Okay. So I am a makeup girly through and through.
I
So
love
I
your
love
makeup
this
content.
question. Oh my God. I love this. I have multiple products, but the one I brought today is this Urban Decay Liquid Shake liquid eyeshadow. Because I get a lot of comments every time I do this. It's kind of engagement bait because I get a lot of comments every time I use this in a video. Love your point. Sorry, this is so off topic, but what eyeshadow is that? And I'm like, no, I love it. So these come in a bunch of different colors, like the iconic Space Cowboy and a bunch of the other
Oh,
ones. This
love.
one's the silver one that I'm wearing today.
I
But they
love
give
it.
so you just shake it up and the brush is inside and it's, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see on this camera, but it's this beautiful wet looking shimmer.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
So it's super quick, it's super easy, and it gives like this wet looking sparkle.
I love that. I love a liquid or cream shadow. Yeah,
I
it's
love that that's
amazing.
the product because this whole time I've been like, God, I better
I know. I'm like, her makeup looks so fucking good. I'm
That
like,
was
It is.
perfect.
I'm telling you, it's great.
amazing.
I love it.
Didn't even know.
Phenomenal.
Well, Jess, we have loved chatting with you and really appreciate your perspective. Hope that people take away, if nothing else, I think the message today is, girl, if you white, you better get up. Let's go.
Buckle up, bitch.
Buckle up.
Mhm. Fully.
And it's just been a pleasure. So thank you for joining us.
I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys so much. This was so fun and love the pod and so honored to be here. So thank you again.